and a very happy Christmas Eve and a very Merry Christmas. Tonight on The Buzz, we take a look back at key trends during 2015. We'll cover hardware, software, workflow, labor, and legal issues with our BuZZ team, including Randi Altman, Phillip Hodgetts, Ned Soltz, Larry O'Connor, Michael Kamas, and Jonathan Handel. Tonight on Christmas Eve, it's the highlights of 2015. The Buzz starts now.
Tonight's digital production buzz is brought to you by Otherworld Computing at MacSales.com and by Blackmagic Design at BlackMagicDesign.com.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for creative content creators and the industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Tonight we begin the first of two special shows to end the year. We're going to start by taking a look back at 2015 to highlight some of the most significant trends in media. And what better place to start than our own resident expert, Mr. Mike Horton. Hello, Mike, and a very Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. And a Merry Christmas to you. Merry night before Christmas. By the way, what's your favorite Christmas carol song?
Carol of the Bells.
Carol of the Bells. Little Drummer Boy. Don't know the words. I always forget the words, but boy, I love that song.
Yeah, that's very true.
Boy, that's a song that gets you in the spirit.
Well,
Anyway, I'm in the spirit.
Getting in the spirit, as you look back on 2015, what strikes you as significant about the year? I wanted to get your opinion before I ask some of the other guys.
Two come to mind really quickly. VR and drones. Drones and VR. They took over the entire year as far as I was concerned. Drones especially were in the news almost every day. VR especially just in the last few months. Giant corporations and companies are growing up around this whole industry. You're going to see, I guarantee you, in January at CES, this thing is going to explode. It's not like, it doesn't feel like 3D. It feels like something that's sustainable, that people are actually going to use. And I think, whatever business models are out there, right now gaming seems to be the only business model. Everything else, I'm not really sure. But I do know that every studio is on board. There's a lot of companies getting on board in terms of filming all the added extras for DVDs. It's exploding.
Well, I know Randi Altman is definitely looking forward to seeing how VR develops, but I also was just thinking that you spend a lot of time working with user groups. What's been happening with user groups over the last year?
It's a fight. It's a fight to get people to come out of their little cubicles, their offices, their homes, and to meet one another and face to face. That's always been a fight, and it still continues to be that. In fact, it gets harder and harder each year because as technology develops, and the fact that you and I can have this conversation together, where I'm at my home, you're at your home, or you're in your office, and we can see each other and we can see behind each other. It just makes it that much more difficult, but it's still very, very important for people who are very serious about what they do to get out of the house and shake the hands of somebody that's a lot smarter than they are.
Well, networking is still critical in our industry.
Yeah.
Not only who you know, but who knows you.
And it's hard to get the youngins to kind of get out there and do that sort of thing. But I keep trying, and I will keep trying, and eventually, darn it, they'll listen. So
Well, Michael, have yourself a great holiday, and we'll chat with you next week as we celebrate New Year's Eve together and look forward to 2016.
All right. Merry Christmas to you and everybody else behind you.
And Merry Christmas to you as well. By the way, I want to remind you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue, every week gives you an inside look at both the buzz and the industry, plus quick links to all the different segments on the show. Best of all, every issue is free. I'll be back with Phillip Hodgetts right after Randi Altman's perspective on the news.
This is Randi Altman's Perspective.
Randi Altman has been writing about our industry for more than 20 years. In fact, she is the editor-in-chief of postperspective.com. And as always, it's a delight to say, welcome, Randi. Good to have you back.
Hi, Larry. Happy Christmas Eve.
And a very happy Christmas Eve to you, too. Thanks for taking time out of your holiday schedule to join us. But I wanted to start the show taking a look back at 2015 by talking with you. What are some of the highlights that you've seen over the last year that stick in your mind?
Some of the trends, well, one in particular would be virtual reality.
Why so?
It came in strong at the beginning of the year, and it has not let go. More and more workflows, ways to view it, people interested. It's just rolling along.
Well, you've been a big fan of virtual reality since we started talking with you on these perspectives. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts next week as we look forward to what's happening in 2016. But what other trends have come to your mind over the last year?
Well, high dynamic range has been a talking point throughout the year. More and more people have been interested in those kind of workflows. Adobe recently announced that they can work with high dynamic range workflows. So we'll be seeing more of that, I think.
You know, I'm a big fan of HDR since I saw a technical demonstration of it about a year and a half ago. But it's just amazing how all that additional light changes your perception of the image. And the biggest challenge I think that we've had is that we haven't been able to look at it. There's been no monitors on the market for the last year, which we'll talk more about when we chat with you next week. Any other trends that caught your mind in terms of editing software or the post process?
Not necessarily on that end, but I think on the production end, I've been seeing more and more people, including feature films, shooting on a variety of different cameras. They're not just picking one or the other. They're picking essentially a camera for a particular scene. So I have found that to be very interesting, including using GoPros or iPhones, the 6S, which can shoot 4K.
So rather than standardizing on a single codec for shooting, we're seeing multiple codecs used in production. We got to standardize in post. That's a shift, it seems to me.
Yes, absolutely.
What I'd like to do is get some opinions from others of our BuZZ family to see what they think has happened in 2015, and then come back to you next week and put our prognostication hat on and see what your thinking is for 2016. Does that work for you?
It does, Larry. Absolutely.
Randi is the editor-in-chief of postperspective.com. Visit her website for all the most fascinating interviews in our industry. Randi, a wonderful holiday to you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Larry. Take care.
To read more from Randi Altman, visit postperspective.com.
Phillip Hodgetts is the CEO of Intelligent Assistance and Lumberjack System. He's also involved with technology in virtually every area of digital production and post-production. Even better, he's a regular contributor to the BuZZ. Hello, Phillip. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
And a very Merry Christmas Eve to you.
Merry Christmas to you, too.
I wore my lumberjack and Christmas shirt just for you today. So
I appreciated that, yes, very much.
We're devoting tonight's show to take a look back at 2015 and see what some of the trends are, and I couldn't think of a better person to start with than yourself. So as you look back at the year, what trends come first to mind?
I think the nicest thing about 2015 is that it's been kind of a consolidation year. There's been nothing new and radical this year that's upset us and thrown us in a loop. You know, no completely new camera technology, no completely new editing system, no completely new codec. Okay, we're starting to have to deal with H.265, but it's a soft rollout. We don't have to worry about that too much just yet. So it's been a nice year of consolidation, and thank goodness for that, because we need one of those pretty regularly, because if we're constantly in turmoil every year, it's not good for just not good in general, because it's not good to be reinventing workflows every second week. So I think it's been a nice consolidation this year. It's the year that we've seen 4K production become routine, that it's no longer special. You know, 4K is, well, what you produce if you can afford to, if there's likely to be any legs on the program material. So it's also a consolidation year of getting smaller. I mean, those cameras We've got 4K GoPros, which are tiny. We've got micro cameras from Blackmagic Design and from other people, both studio and field cameras that are incredibly tiny compared with what we were used to. Now, of course, no one tool is perfect for every situation, but having these small cameras, small mounts opens up a whole lot of new opportunities for production. This is the year that my partner Greg and I have produced a lunch video series where we simply go into a restaurant, put up a couple of GoPros, some microphones on people, and record a lunch conversation.
But I want to pick up on a word that you used. You called it a year of consolidation, and it doesn't sound like things are like companies are not acquiring other companies. They're not consolidating that way. It sounds more like everybody's taking a deep breath and it's a pause before the next big thing. Am I hearing that correctly?
Exactly. That was the intent, that not so much consolidation of companies being bought up or technologies being brought together, but simply a year where nothing too dramatically new was introduced. I can't think of a single, hugely dramatic release this year that changed the entire production world. We've had it in the past where we had the red digital camera coming around and workflows associated with that. We've had it in 2011 with, Final Cut Pro 10 coming out. We've had it with a lot of the cameras from Blackmagic, who we weren't expecting to make cameras. So we've had years where there have been some fairly dramatic overturns, changes in the industry that have just created turmoil and the need to generate new workflows. Offline. How do we link these new media formats? Once we get those sort of initially conquered, and then it's nice just to be able to roll them out on feature film or production after production. It's those years where things are in turmoil that makes it very difficult for everybody in production to have to deal with this constantly changing terrain under their feet. And having some sort of stability for a while lets us consolidate workflows that work and that everyone is familiar with.
Two things that surprised me, though, on the software side. One was the rise of DaVinci Resolve. It has continued to evolve into now some people consider it an editing package of its own worth. And the other is the rapid development that Adobe's been putting Premiere through. It's not anywhere near the same software that it was a year ago. What do you think about both of those?
I think you're right. Both are exciting in their own way. I honestly don't really know what to make of DaVinci Resolve. I mean, certainly it is a basic editing platform at this point. It could probably still use a little bit better media management and some keyword ranges would be nice, but maybe that's proprietary to other people. But certainly Blackmagic are putting the effort into bringing in new features, and if they continue with 80 to 100 new features per year, then it gets to a point where it has to be taken seriously as an NLE, as well as a finishing tool, as well as a DIT tool for on-set use. So they are building up from set to distribution tool there. I'm just not sure where the user base will come from. I certainly think new users will come into that, and the low, as in free price, will be very attractive. But I think the company that would need to be most concerned about the rise of DaVinci Resolve, particularly since it has collaboration built in, would be Avid, and it would be, I think, threatening their Media Composer product, except that Media Composer is so well entrenched that it probably doesn't. I see Adobe have done a lot of really, really great work with Premiere Pro and the whole suite, really. There are some really great innovations in there. I love the character animation tools that are in After Effects and in the standalone application. There are a lot to be done. They're certainly at the forefront of H.265 encoding. That'd be the easiest place to go to get H.265 encoding right now. And I read that today that Netflix are planning to re-encode their entire library in H.265 for more efficient distribution. At this point, nobody's got H.265 playback, but I guess that will come.
No, but I want to hold it. I want to pause on that for just a second. I'm really excited about what H.265 means for the future. And for the first time, we're now able to encode into it using Adobe Media Encoder. But I do want to put a word of caution in. And it being able to encode in H.265 doesn't mean anybody can play it back yet. So very much this is a time to experiment and see, but don't shift your library over to 265. Nobody's going to be able to watch it. Phillip, we've talked about the fact that hardware seems to be on a plateau and there's bubblings in software, but nothing that really stands out. But the one thing we haven't talked about is the distribution. And I think distribution has changed a lot this year. What have you noticed?
certainly distribution has probably been the thing that's most disrupted this year. And I think we're seeing the beginnings of the disruption rather than the result of it. We already have a lot more program producers like Amazon, Netflix are out there, Google, YouTube. There's a lot of new players in the content space. And we're starting to see a lot of channels come through in apps on various devices, portable devices, Apple TV. So we're seeing the appification of channels, I think. Netflix, Amazon do come up on an Apple TV and other Roku devices and similar places as apps. So, the channel has become the app, I think. And that's
the appification of channels.
The appification of channels. You heard it here first.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Phillip, what I want to do is this really blends us into not only where we've been in 2015, but where we're going next year. What I'd like to do is to invite you back next week, and let's take a look forward at what we could expect for 2016. Does that work for you?
That works for me. It's always a minefield to go through, but let's try it.
I was just thinking, we've been doing this look forward for years and years, and nobody's caught us yet. So let's see what happens for another year. For people who want to keep track of your writing, what website can they go to?
PhillipHodgetts.com is probably the best point of contact for me.
And the Phillip Hodgetts himself is who we've been talking to. Phillip is the CEO of Intelligent Assistance and Lumberjack Systems. And Phillip, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Still to come on The Buzz.
When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting macsales.com today. That's macsales.com.
Ned Soltz is an author, an editor, an educator, and consultant on all things related to digital video. He's also a contributing editor for Digital Video Magazine, a moderator on Tupop and Creative Cow forums, and best of all, a regular correspondent here on The Buzz. Hello, Ned. Welcome back.
Hello, Larry, and to you, Merry Christmas, and to all Christmas celebrators listening today, a Merry Christmas to all of you.
And a very Merry Christmas to you, too, Ned. We're devoting tonight's show to look back at 2015, so what are some of the trends that caught your eye this last year?
I think one of the trends that caught my eye last year is a couple of things that happened just in recent weeks, where we're beginning to see particular vendors now, active financiers, as well as consultants in the production of hardware specifically. A couple of years ago, we saw Abel Cine involved with a German manufacturer in the production of a PL mount to B4 adapter. And just this past week, BandPro in LA announced that they had collaborated with a German manufacturer to produce and obviously then to distribute through BandPro a rather high-end line of full-frame macro lenses in 100 millimeter length and a couple that are a little bit longer. I think one goes up to about 150. And these, of course, are very high-end products perhaps designed for full-frame cameras like a Sony A7, or to the high end of that like an Alexa 65. But the fact is they're involved now in the production and possibly even in the financing. And now on the level of something more affordable to the likes of you and me, although I'm sure that you're doing well enough to afford a fleet of Alexa 65s, but
I don't even bother to buy them anymore. They're a drug on the market.
they're just yeah, right. But there is this really cool little action camera that I'm hoping to get a hold of in the next couple of weeks through Adorama. Adorama collaborated with a Kickstarter campaign from a Chinese company that wanted to produce something about the size of a GoPro, except full HD and with a micro four thirds sensor and MFT mount, which they did. And it's the Z Camera E1. It's selling for about $600, but Adorama actually put money into that development through Kickstarter. Now, wearing my journalistic hat, I'm trying to inquire exactly how much money they did invest, and that amount is not certainly going to be revealed to me, certainly so far. But the fact is that we're now seeing vendors who are an active part of development. And to me, that's a significant trend right now, because when you look at the plethora of product, both hardware and software, that came out in 2015, it's almost very logical that value-added resellers know what their customers want, recognize an interesting product, or go about and develop an interesting product with a collaborating manufacturer if nobody else is manufacturing. So that, to me, is a significant trend. And maybe changing gears for a moment, another significant trend is the movement toward mirrorless cameras now, away from the DSLRs. Indeed, you're still seeing 7Ds out there and 5Ds shooting video. But more and more, something like a GH4 is becoming a real darling of a lot of people. And then Sony's introduction this past year of both the A7R Mark II and the A7S Mark II is a whole new dimension right now in the mirrorless cameras, because here we have full-frame cameras that can also scale down to APS-C size sensor, depending upon the lens, and things that are very portable, and in the case of the A7S Mark II, can practically see in the dark. So we're seeing that new kind of trend right now with the mirrorless cameras. And alas, I love them. They're a sponsor of my Opictive user group. But alas, we're still in the situation with poor Blackmagic, where they can announce at NAB 2015 and still can't deliver by December 2015. And that's a shame. That's a shame, because I love the product and love what they do, but the ambitious delivery schedules are alienating a number of users, I'm afraid.
Now, are you seeing that camera prices are holding stable, or is there a race for the bottom in terms of the low end, and is the high end able to even survive these days?
I think there's an interesting market segmentation going on right now, and it's not just in cameras. It's in cameras, it's in accessories, it's in lighting. And a good example of that, by the way, is Red. Because Red always, assuming we're going to be holding the high end with Red, the announcement this year of both the Raven for the sub $10,000 market and the Scarlet W for the sub $20,000 market means that I think that's where a great deal of the action is. There's probably action in the high end, but I doubt that owner-operators are spending the kind of money that they used to spend on buying these high-end cameras. Well, they're going the rental house route.
The trend is that cameras are obsoleting so quickly you'll never get your money back. If you buy a $20,000 or $30,000 camera, it's dead before you get your money out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I see, for example, again, to put the Sony plug in there, what I'm shooting on my Sony FS7. And essentially what I'm shooting on my Sony FS7, which is a $10,000 camera, let us say, is the equivalent of what I could shoot on $20,000 or $1,000 cameras or more, just because of some of the feature sets that Sony puts into that. So I can make money on that lower end camera. I can't make money in my business if I'm putting $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 into a camera. That's an absolute impossibility. for not that much of a significant return for the kind of work that I do.
Are you seeing any new significant codecs showing up, or are we starting to stabilize in the world of codecs?
Well, we're seeing more and more of the AVC variant of codecs. So Sony, of course, with its XAVC. Canon now, with the introduction of the C300 Mark II, an XF AVC. So we're seeing more and more of the movement toward these AVC codecs in a whole variety of cameras and a whole variety of price ranges. I wish manufacturers, though, would somehow figure out a way to license and ship Cineform, which has been around for a long time, and it's a wonderful codec and wonderfully compact, and I still think has a definite place in the world. And I wish we'd see more of that. But on the other hand, camera manufacturers and everybody else may be introducing codecs based on AVC because they're efficient to shoot in, but everybody ultimately wants to go to ProRes by and large.
Well, one of the problems,
and XHD, but people want ProRes.
My understanding is one of the problems with codecs is the chip that's used inside the camera has a data rate limitation of around 10 megabytes a second, which means that you can't use some of the high-end codecs like ProRes or Cineform because the chip can't record the data fast enough.
That's certainly the case. That's certainly the case in some levels of camera, for sure.
Well, it would also makes it cheaper to make the camera because you don't have to have that high a bandwidth inside it too.
Right. That's a factor.
Ned,
Absolutely.
what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring you back next week, and New Year's Eve, try to stop your celebrating for just a moment, bring you back next week, and let's take a look forward at what the trends of this year mean for what we can expect next year. Can I bring you back then?
You can bring me back, and I won't pop the bottle of champagne until after we talk, and that way I'll be coherent.
And Ned, for people that want to keep track of what you're writing, where can they go on the web?
The easiest place right now is www.creativeplanetnetworks.com.
That's all one word, creativeplanetnetworks.com, and a contributing editor for that network and Digital Video Magazine is Ned Saltz. Ned, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry.
In his current role as Director of Technology at Keycode Media, Michael Kamas consults on the latest in technology and best practices in the digital communications space. Also, in his spare time, he creates a new series of web videos called 5 Things and basically lives and breathes tech. Hello, Michael. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Larry. Good to see you.
You know, a very Merry Christmas Eve before I forget to wish you the happiest of holidays.
And to you and your team as well, thank you very much.
We're devoting tonight's show to a look back at 2015, and let's start with the broadest of all questions. What are some of the media trends that caught your eye?
I wish I could say the trends were sexy and they were really interesting and shiny, but it's been asset management. Believe it or not, it's not the most exciting thing.
Michael, asset management? I'm supposed to stay awake for asset management?
It's a dirty phrase, I know. I like to call it automation because at the end of the day, that's what it does. It helps to streamline a lot of the things that assistant editors are doing, that a lot of loggers are doing, and make data accessible, and then be able to automate transcoding or archiving, things that just take up your time during the day that you could be used to create content instead of organizing and finding it.
Now, why is asset management, after struggling for visibility for years, suddenly started to wake up this year?
People aren't deleting media. People aren't using less cameras, and people aren't deleting things. So the ability to find all this content and not just find it, but be able to store it and then do something with it after the project's over, that's become an increasingly large responsibility, and facilities just don't have someone to dedicate to that.
Okay, so we've got asset management, which really is partly hardware, but mostly software, has been something that caught your attention. What other trends have you spotted?
I think we discussed this a little bit last year, and we definitely saw an uptick this year, and that's not only the asset management portion, but also remote editing. We talked about the Avid Everywhere and the interplay portion. We talked about the Adobe Anywhere scenario. We've seen technologies like Teradici really pick up steam. And so the ability to edit outside the confines of your four walls has really garnered a lot of interest.
Has it been that the interest is caused by remote editing with storing media in one spot and editors or another, or is it the collaboration aspect that's got people excited?
It's mainly the collaboration aspect, and we also find smaller boutiques don't want to have 50,000 square feet for editors. They want to be able to have a smaller footprint to be lean and mean and be able to sub out work when they need it. Of course, the conversation always goes to, well, are you just subbing out to less expensive labor overseas or elsewhere? But more often than not, we're finding that, no, we just have good talent locally that we feel, hey, let them create in their own environment as opposed to being in a traditional box, an edit room, which is a square with, no excitement. So being able to do it in your own space has a lot of attention.
Well, also that makes it a lot easier to do scaling, where you've got a project where you need 10 editors and need to scale down to 2 or up to 20. If you don't have to worry about office space for all of them, it makes scaling a lot easier too.
It makes that makes complete sense. We're also finding folks who are going out and shooting overseas or in other states, they can now start cutting almost immediately with some caveats, but be able to edit a lot quicker than waiting for the dailies to get back to home base and waiting for that whole process to start.
How about trends in hardware? Any hardware suddenly lighting up in ways that they haven't before?
We're seeing a lot more software manufacturers supporting VMs. And while that isn't fantastic...
define
sure.
a VM. What's a VM?
VM is what they call a virtual machine. And it's the ability to run a Linux or Windows OS inside a larger machine that can host multiple VMs. So instead of having one computer dedicated to one user, we now can have one computer operating as a central hub for multiple OSs.
This strikes me as like the mini and the mainframe computers of 30 years ago, where we simply had a dumb terminal accessing a screen that was connected to the computer that did the computing. Are we going back to that?
I love the fact you brought that up, because when I start bringing up the concept of a mainframe topology, the younger editors' eyes glaze over, like they have no idea what I'm talking about. We are going back to that to some extent, obviously with the previously mentioned remote editing. That's a very much mainframe topology. And doing a centralized hosting of software and being able to have that go out to dumb terminals, that's obviously a part of that. Now, we're not seeing it as much on the creative end, but we are seeing it on the server end. A lot of facilities who are running databases, who are running Avid, et cetera, those are now supported inside VMs, which makes management a heck of a lot easier.
All right. Well, you've touched on the other aspect. We've looked at hardware trends. How about software? What's happening in software that's caught your eye?
The race to zero. Obviously, the price of software, the bottom has just fallen out of it. Even if we look at some of the juggernauts like Autodesk, right, who have always had very high-tier pricing, even those prices have dropped. If we look at things like Resolve, right, the base version is free. The other manufacturers, Apple aside, have gone to monthly fees instead of several $1,000 flat fee buyouts. So we're seeing the price of entry is a lot lower, which means a lot more people can create.
I think one of the trends that's impressed me is, to pick up on that pricing, is the success of subscriptions, of software rental. And while there's a lot of users that are concerned about it, from the developer's point of view, a steady cash flow has a very, very pleasant sound to it. And it's not just Adobe, but I've seen it throughout the creative space. We're seeing more and more companies are pushing subscriptions. Are you seeing the same thing, or am I misunderstanding what's going on?
No, it's amazing, the Pied Piper mentality. We had Apple several years ago who did let's sell a lot at cheap, and they made a boatload, right? So we had Adobe a couple years ago say the same thing. Look, we're going to do a monthly fee. And then who followed suit, right? Autodesk did it. Avid did it. And to Avid's credit, I find that they kind of capitalized on the areas that Adobe didn't, with offering flexibility in terms of perpetual, yearly, monthly, et cetera. Whereas Adobe just said, no, it's monthly and deal with it. We've seen a lot of companies move to that methodology because Adobe had success with it.
One of the strengths you've got is a much greater understanding of Avid than I do. How is Avid doing as a company? Because there was a while there it was having some problems. Are they coming back?
We're very excited about Avid Interplay and Everywhere becoming more adopted within the industry. And with that, I think there'll be an influx of excitement into the company. They obviously released a new I/O this year, which they branded with Blackmagic, which we all were kind of excited about. And of course, Media Composer 8.4 or 8.3 and 8.4 released this year have 4K. So that kind of rounds out the feature set that we've been looking for Avid. So I think we're pretty optimistic. As it is with every NLE every year, it's always a crapshoot, but we're definitely excited about what's going to happen.
Well, thinking about what's going to happen leads me to what's going to happen next. In less than a week, it's going to be a new year. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite you back next week to give us your sense of where the future's taking us and what we can look forward to in 2016. Does that work for you?
I would love to. I always have acronyms to share with you.
Michael, for people that want to keep track of what you're thinking and doing, where can they go on the web?
A couple different places. You could go to michaelkamas.com. You could also follow me on Twitter at michaelkamas, or my aforementioned series that Larry mentioned, 5thingsseries.com.
That website is Michael Kamas, Kammes, michaelkamas.com, and the Michael himself is the person we're talking to. Michael, I look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Larry.
Still to come on The Buzz.
The folks at Blackmagic Design keep shaking up the industry. The new DaVinci Resolve 12 could be all the video editor you need. DaVinci Resolve 12 combines professional nonlinear video editing with the world's most advanced color corrector. So now you can edit, color correct, finish, and deliver all from one system. The brand new Blackmagic Video Assist is a high-resolution professional monitor and recorder that allows you to see a full-pixel 1080 image large enough so you can focus a DSLR camera accurately. And the new Ursa Mini cameras provide stunning quality with a 4.6K sensor and 15 stops of dynamic range. Compact, lightweight, and built from advanced magnesium alloy. When it comes to state-of-the-art technology, look first at Blackmagic Design at blackmagicdesign.com. That's blackmagicdesign.com.
Larry O'Connor founded Otherworld Computing, which is also called OWC, in 1988. Their website, which you may know better than their company name, is macsales.com. OWC is both a reseller and a developer, supporting all things Mac for more than 25 years. And it's wearing the developer hat that we want to talk with Larry today. Hello, Larry. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Larry.
A very Merry Christmas Eve to you.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you and all yours. Happy New Year, too.
Well, now we're going to have you on the New Year show as well, so let us not anticipate too widely here. Anyway, we're devoting tonight's show to look back at 2015. What are some of the trends that caught your eye this last year?
Yeah, I'd say a wider adoption, just a substantial expansion in what highly capable, creative folks have been able to do with technology and their use of technology, and the dependence on technology and the stores and such to do more. And when I talk about that dependence, though, an easier use to get the job done. I mean, better solutions that let people focus on what they're best at and where their time should be focused.
So you're seeing the principal advantage or principal trend for 2015 sounds like it's workflow to you, doing things more efficiently.
I would say yes to that. There's bigger, higher capacity drives, arrays that offer a better plug-and-play capability, less work for the less technical work for the, and not by any means say it's still not as easy as everybody would love it to be, but the technology is becoming less of a hindrance and more of an enabling factor than ever before. And bigger, higher capacity drives certainly make a big difference in people's workflow.
Well, thinking about storage for just a second, we've seen that the storage capacities have significantly increased over the last year. But are you seeing anything new in storage evolve over the last year, or has it just been sort of evolutionary growth?
I call it revolutionary and evolutionary at the same time. But one thing that has trended, and certainly, and this, I may be biased here, is with the emergence of Thunderbolt, and especially Thunderbolt 2. You have different kinds of storage technologies that now work really well with that extra bandwidth and provide exceptionally improved flexibility to those that need different kinds of storage solutions. So it's subtle, yet honestly, it's easily taken for granted. But it's really it's more than just an evolution. And of course, solid state is playing into the equation, and with a good mix and in good balance. It's not the be-all, end-all. However, hybridized and utilized in concert with the right platter storage, there's amazingly effective solutions today with exceptional flexibility that really weren't possible just a couple years ago, and certainly not in the budget range of how to say that's within reach of so many.
I was just reading just a couple of days ago that Western Digital announced a brand new 10 terabyte hard drive. I mean, the amount of storage that we're able to squeeze onto a traditional spinning media disc just is stunning to me. I could never have imagined we'd have gotten that much capacity on a single drive. Are you seeing that trend is continuing, or are we starting to reach the top on what we can put on spinning media?
There's always limits in today's technology, but today's technology is substantially evolved from what these same arguments that were made 5, 6, 7 years ago with spinning platter drives. So in terms of where things are going, there's from what I understand, and the technologies that are currently emerging, we're going to continue to see higher and higher densities in the spinners. We're not yet done with where that technology, or I should say, where that platform, considered a platform, because the technology inside a hard drive, how to say it, at a lot of levels is a lot different than what it was just a few years ago. But enabling the higher densities is really revolutionary steps, and we continue to march forward.
Well, another thing that you mentioned happened over the last year is SSDs. We're seeing SSD prices start to drop, but we're not seeing lots and lots of additional capacity on SSDs. Are SSDs stuck on a plateau?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, it's more, as you get into higher densities in NAND, I mean, there's different challenges that have to be overcome. And you can put out, for lack of pardon my pun, I guess I should say, flashy, high capacity products. But there's a lot more to it, and there's just like hard drives over the course of time. There's some big steps yet to be made to adjust for the leaps in capacity and ensuring that the data, the longevity of say the media, is managed and maintained. So I don't think we're at a plateau. I think we're going to see some big jumps over the next couple of years in flash. But we'll see where we're at in 3 or 4 years in terms of what technology we're actually. And this is the thing. I mean, you talk about an SSD. Some people think memory. I mean, they interchange terms. A lot of people out there think that, we'll interchange hard drive and SSD. What we're using for SSDs in a few years will be very different than what we're using today. In fact, even the core technology, the media, I should say the chips, the kind of technology that we store data with is going to be very different. No different than if you look at how a hard drive recorded to its media 5 or 6 years ago. They're still hard drives to the world, but they're really a very different beast inside and at a technical level. Regardless of using, a chip, a piece of a NAND module is still effectively silicon. A hard drive is made up of spinning platters, but those platters are a lot different than what they had been. The current technology with NAND definitely has a few areas potentially of plateau. But what's really going to be in a flash or a solid-state drive in a few years, or what we call a solid-state drive, I think it's going to evolve significantly.
As you look at the other hardware that you sell through your website, have you noticed, if we exclude storage, any other hardware trends, gear that suddenly caught fire last year that surprised you?
I can't really say that anything's been super surprising, and in the sense that products that add external functionality have taken off like wildfire, and that's because the trend in general has been to take away ports and reduce built-in functionality. So anything that gives you more capabilities is taken off. But that's also, as I say, something that now is to a certain degree custom tailored. I mean, you buy the external add-ons, the external capability adders that fit your needs, as opposed to getting a solution that already has everything in the box for everybody. You're buying things that are just for you. And that's going to get better as the bandwidth on these systems, with Thunderbolt 3 in the future, that really starts to become a real practical game plan. With Thunderbolt and Thunderbolt 2, I really wish there'd be really need a PCIe slot in some of these systems to unlock everything. But as we move forward, it's going to be easier and easier just to plug in what you need.
Well, what I'd like to do, Larry, is to invite you back next week on our New Year's Eve show and talk about how we can take the trends that developed in 2015 and spot what the trends are for 2016. Can we invite you back next week?
I'd love to be back, absolutely. And wish a proper Happy New Year.
And Larry, for people that want to keep track of what you and your company is doing, where can they go on the web?
They can visit us at owcdigital.com and macsales.com.
And Larry O'Connor is the founder of OWC. And Larry, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Larry, for having me. And again, Merry Christmas.
Jonathan Handel is an entertainment and technology attorney of counsel at Troy Gould in Los Angeles. He's also the contributing editor on entertainment labor issues for The Hollywood Reporter, and best of all, he's a regular here on The Buzz. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome back.
Larry, it's a pleasure to be back with you.
And a very Merry Christmas Eve to you.
Merry Christmas Eve. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you. We are devoting tonight's show to a look back at 2015, and I thought I'd ask you, what are some of the trends this year that caught your eye?
Well, there were trends both in Hollywood and nationally when it came to labor. In Hollywood, I think the biggest development really was the SAG-AFTRA elections. We saw frustration among the membership, among other reasons, because of the fact that the health plans have not yet merged. As you recall, SAG and AFTRA themselves merged back in 2012, but it's been 3 years, and the health plans as well as the pension plans are still separate. Now, those are separate organizations legally from the union, but nonetheless, people were hoping to see somewhat more progress, and it was one of the bases, not the only basis, but one of the bases on which merger was sold. So what we see now is a Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, with something of a split in the leadership between the folks who were pro-merger, the Unite for Strength faction, they're called, and the folks who initially had been or earlier were anti-merger, membership first. Where that's going to lead, we don't yet know.
Well, are you seeing this as foot dragging, or just that the two plans are so complex it's hard to merge them?
Well, it's difficult to tell. I don't think it's, I mean, the one thing we have to remember is that the board of directors for the pension and health plan is composed 50% of union representatives and 50% of management representatives. There is some possibility that what management is trying to do is make merger of the health plans a bargaining issue, so that in the next round of negotiation, which will be starting really next fall, that the union, if it wants to see those plans merged, is going to have to give up something in return. That's not really a proper thing to do if that is what's being done, because when they sit on that board, both the union members and management members are supposed to be fiduciaries or trustees representing the participants in the plan, the people that are receiving health insurance and receiving pensions or qualifying for pensions. But whether that's what's actually going on, we don't know. It is not. It is important to know it is not wholly within the union's power to simply snap a finger and say, okay, now we're merging.
One of the other issues that I remember from our conversations early in the year was on-set safety and safety in general. Has that still developed into a hot button, or has that just sort of subsided now that nobody's getting hurt recently?
Well, sadly, it's sort of subsided now that people are still getting hurt somewhat. I mean, there was, I'm recalling that there were, I believe, some injuries or some deaths, I believe, in a helicopter crash involving a production, I think in South America just recently. You know, it's simply, unfortunately, not the case that no one gets hurt on a regular basis in our industry. It's a dangerous business at times, and I'd say that, you know, without having my finger literally on the pulse of the crew from day to day, I'd say that it has, like all things, subsided to some extent now that it's no longer, you know, right in people's, you know, in people's viewfinders, as it were. But I hope there's been some lasting effect. I'd like to believe that there has been, as a result of the Slates for Sarah movement and other movements related to safety.
Your principal area of coverage is the guilds inside Hollywood. But another key trend has been flights of film out of Hollywood into other states and even other countries due to tax incentives and others. Are you seeing that trend continuing, or is it about the same, or what's your take on that?
Well, it is continuing. You know, there are always, the pieces always get shuffled a little bit. For one thing, we have seen some production return to California as a result, and Los Angeles area in particular, as a result of the California incentives that were increased finally after a lot of lobbying. We also saw North Carolina, I believe, end their incentive program. So there's been some shift, but you know, there is an awful lot of production that goes on overseas and you know, and in other states. And in addition, there's an increase in local production being done in local languages overseas. So it's a, you know, it's a very globalized business. And of course, when you talk about things like safety, like union coverage, union policies, things of that sort, that makes it all the more complex because of the geographically dispersed nature of the business.
That was a good point. I remember reading just a couple of weeks ago, there was an article on how Warner Brothers is developing films for local markets outside the U.S. Russia came first to mind in terms of the article. This idea of developing films for international distribution that doesn't even hit the States is relatively new, it seems to me.
Well, it's growing. I mean, there have been little bits and pieces of it for some time, I think, but it's, I think finally the studios are recognizing that this is going to be a potentially significant part, at least in some territories, you know, of their business. So it certainly is becoming more prominent. That's right.
Last question before we run out of time is crew sizes. With the miniaturization of hardware and things becoming more and more automated, are crew sizes, especially on mid-sized films, which is the majority of what Hollywood is turning out, are the crew sizes getting smaller, or are roughly the same number of people being employed?
Well, you know, my sense is that the crew sizes didn't get smaller; the pictures got bigger, so to speak. You know, we really are looking at we're looking at a Hollywood business that focuses a lot on tent poles, and of course, you've got enormous crew sizes there. I'm not aware of any shrinkage in, you know, significant shrinkage in crew sizes. I may not be 100% right on that. Our viewers may have some more input than I do, but I'm not aware of a huge change.
Jonathan, are there other trends that you've noticed this last year that we need to pay attention to?
Yes, the devolution of power when it comes to labor and employment relations from Congress, which has been relatively inactive, particularly with the difference in political control between Congress and, of course, the presidency, the devolution of power to state and local regulators. So you see states and cities raising the minimum wage. You see cities even, such as Seattle, trying to come up with ways to unionize part-time workers, like workers on Uber, things that at one point in time might have been matters for Congress, but in today's world are really not being addressed federally.
For people that want to keep track of your thought and your writing, where can they go to learn more on the web?
Two places, jhandle.com and THR Labor, the Hollywood Reporter Labor.com.
And the J. Handel himself, Jonathan Handel of Counsel at Troy Gould and the Entertainment Labor Reporter for the Hollywood Reporter. Jonathan, as always, it's fun visiting. And can we invite you back next week to take a look at trends to look forward to in 2016?
I'd be pleased to come back. Thank you.
We'll see you then. Jonathan, thank you so much. I want to invite you to become a member of our video training library. Our training library is unique in the industry. It includes more than 1,400 in-depth movies, each accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every movie in our library can be streamed to any internet-connected device. and it includes production and post-production, hardware, software, and techniques. It features current and past software releases from both Apple and Adobe, and unlike YouTube, all our training is complete. And unlike other websites, we focus exclusively on media production and post-production. Best of all, our memberships are affordable, starting at only $19.99 per month. Focused, in-depth, accessible, and complete. This is the training that you need to solve problems, master new software, and expand your business. I invite you to become a member today. Thanks.
It's time for a Buzz flashback, 5 years ago today.
First of all, very different than it was back in the day when record labels were gatekeepers, because the huge growth in the last few years has been that of independently produced and independently released product in a wide variety of different musical styles. We're seeing very big changes in the way that artists connect with their fans and the way fans find artists.
This was a Buzz flashback.
I want to thank our guests for this week and remind you that they'll all be back next week with their thoughts as they look ahead to 2016. Randi Altman, Phillip Hodgetts, Michael Kamas, Larry O'Connor, Ned Soltz, Jonathan Handel, and as always, Mike Horton. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And please sign up for our free weekly show newsletter. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our producer is Serena Catania. Our engineering team is led by Megan Paulos and includes Ed Golia, Hannah Dean, Keegan Guy, Lindsay Lubert, James Miller, and Brianna Murphy. The holidays are a time of hope and celebration, a chance to look back at the past, appreciate what we have in the present, and look forward in anticipation to the future. All of us at The Buzz are honored to be a part of your life. Have yourself a very Merry Christmas. On behalf of Mike Horton, my name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for joining us for the Digital Production Buzz.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988. And by Blackmagic Design, creating revolutionary solutions for film, post-production, and television.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from The Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching The Digital Production Buzz.